Oregon has a higher rate of mental illness than any other state, report says. Is this a shocker? No, it's really not. Have you seen the No Kings protests? Some of the people that have you seen the ICE facility in the protest there? You've got a bunch of just mentally challenged people, right? And this is across the state, these numbers. Let's get into it. How bad is it? Here we go. Couple of things in this article here. It's pretty wild. As one of her key campaign promises, Governor Tina Kotek committed herself to battling the state's persistent mental health challenges. Recent reports suggest there's still much work to do. Oh, I love that. Oh, we've got a lot more work to do. Meaning we haven't really done jack you know what, but we're going to take the win, which is, we're getting better. It's getting slightly better. Is it? Is it? Well, that's where a recent report suggests there's still much work to do. Says, no. More Oregonians struggle with mental health issues than ever before, according to Mental Health America's newly released 2025 annual report. 30% of the state's adult population, 1 out of 3 people in Oregon has significant enough mental issues to make this report. 1 out of 3. No wonder you've got all these folks just roaming around, getting paid by George Soros to protest No Kings. I mean, who came up with No Kings? That is mental in and of itself, right? I mean, that is a shenanigan of the highest order, because all you got to do is say, well, your protesting is working because there's still no kings. One president, still no kings. It's like there's no secret police. Okay? Well, again, it's working. You nut jobs. There's no secret police. There's just DHS. You got the FBI. You got the CIA. You got ICE. Those are not secret police. There's no thrones. Good heavens. Good thing we protested no thrones, because still not seeing any thrones, because a king would be on the throne. And if a king were on the throne, then you guys wouldn't be protesting, because a king would be authoritarian and say, no protests. You guys are done. That's what would happen. But you've got a situation, and this happened all across the country, but more so in a community like Portland, a city like Portland, because people there are truly mental, just like Seattle, just like LA. People have let them think that this is normal, and it's not. Here's the situation. So 23% of the U.S. population has some kind of mental illness, adults with any mental illness. In Oregon, 30%. So 7% more. That is significant. And it is not a one-off cycle. So in 2021, we had 19 versus 22. That's pretty close. Then things are getting a little worse. Nationwide, during the whole pandemic thing, we know how that went. Okay, 20% nationwide, up a point, but up 2 points in Oregon. And then 2023, another 3 points up. And then a year later, still the same. And then another year, 2 years later, we hit 30% in Oregon. So what's going on here? You've literally got people that are losing their minds, that are reacting to what's going on around them, and their heads are not able to take it. Is this Trump? Are we literally seeing Trump derangement syndrome with this massive upward tick? 22. So you're saying up 8% since 2021. What's going on there? That study also ranks Oregonians, both youth and adults, as having the highest prevalence of mental health challenges among residents of the 50 states in the District of Columbia. Oregon residents have had the highest prevalence of mental illness for years. Past few years, however, the state has devoted hundreds of millions of dollars to improve access to mental health services. How is that working out? Because I see the general trend here as more of an upward type deal, right? I mean, that's a ramp. That's an Evel Knievel ramp. I mean, you should kind of hit that jump and go, right? But so hundreds of millions of dollars. Money is making some difference. The state ranked 7th for access to care in the new report, up from 21st 5 years ago. Okay, so things are getting better, but people are still just mentally, they're out there, right? They're out there. We are seeing the benefit of these investments, whatever. Katie McLaughlin, University of Oregon psychology professor, behavioral head, is particularly concerned about the mental health challenges of Oregon's youth. The root causes, this is something I wanted to focus on in this podcast. The root causes of youth mental health challenges, like exposure to trauma and adversity, are not improving in the state. What kind of trauma and adversity is happening repeatedly in Oregon that's not happening elsewhere that is causing these kids to just, or are they being raised in an environment where they are just so much more likely to have a mental health care issue? Are adults living in Oregon just so much more likely to have a mental health care issue, to the point where they're like, yeah, I'm really needing some help. I really need some help. Otherwise, I'm afraid of what I'm going to do. Is that what's going on? I mean, I know these things are very complex, but I find it really interesting that Oregon, I find it interesting and not surprising. How's that? You go down to Portland for a day and you're just left with, you got so many things that are like, what? That's so beautiful. And, oh, that is so terrible. And, oh, this is how we're handling, this is how we're handling this issue. And wow, that's a lot of homeless people. Huh, that's the library? Then you read all the stories and you have guys on the interweb doing podcasts about it. So the root causes of youth mental health challenges, like exposure to trauma and adversity. Now, Oregon can't be any different than any other state as far as that goes, right? So what's going on? I mean, literally, what is going on? What's happening where you've got this exposure? Yeah, inquiring minds want to know. Oregon has been above the national average in prevalence of mental health issues. So maybe it's just endemic to the population. Maybe there's just, hey, Oregon's crazy. Oregon's just mental. So maybe we do need to send in the National Guard. You've got people in Oregon, 1 out of 3, that are probably not making the best decisions, right? Including all the politicians, including the police department leadership, like not working with other law enforcement. Like what kind of decision is that? Yeah, the governor, pretending that everything's great. It's not. The mayor just walking around, it's the greatest thing ever. I mean, Tear Gas Teddy, remember when he would photo op with Antifa? This is the best time ever. Summer of love. So then we get back to reality and go, well, and Dr. Psychiatry argues Oregon's fragmented mental health system shares some of the blame. Okay, but you can't blame it all on lack of access to mental health, because there's a bunch of other states that don't have it, and they don't have these significant numbers, right? So, yeah, what's the deal? Oregon's just littered with people who have mental issues, and it reflects in their lack of public safety. And I'm talking basically Western Oregon. I'm not talking Eastern Oregon. Eastern Oregon is just like Eastern Washington, wildly different. You get outside these metropolitan areas, it's Trump country. Because people have to be resilient. You might not have the police show up because they're far away, because these are, wide open space type environments. And, you're not going to have Portland Police Bureau showing up, mainly because they're not showing up in Portland either. But when you've got to be self-reliant, you're going to rely upon the sheriff system. In those times, those guys are often Republican. They are conservative, because when you live out in the sticks by yourself, you are inherently conservative. Nobody's going to come take care of you, unlike all the yahoos doing all the shenanigans in the downtown metropolitan areas, right? So the article goes on to say some stuff about, we should do this and we shouldn't do that. Oregon fails many residents with mental health addiction challenges. New state audit proposes fixes. Good luck with that. Anything that Oregon comes up with, anything that California comes up with, anything that Washington State comes up with is not going to be a complete fix, because it's going to involve health authorities and police. You're going to have to bring police in, because there is a very large percentage of the unhoused. Those are people not taking shelter. They're not taking shelter. Those folks are just going to keep doing their thing on the streets, stealing from the community, doing illegal drugs, committing crimes, littering, you name it, needles, you name it, all that stuff. So you're going to have to involve policing in that equation. You're going to have the health authorities work with police. And in Oregon, nah, that's not happening. They hate cops. They hate cops. I had a man in blue send me a picture of a, what was it? A street sign with the little notice on there, kill cops, with a smiley heart. Well, not with a smiley heart, with just a heart. Like, oh yeah, that's a really loving thing to do, is to say, to eliminate the lives of those who are taking an oath to protect you from the bad man. So when the bad man comes, you call 911. Come save me. But during your day thing as Antifa, you put up on signs that killing cops is a cute thing with a heart. Yeah, great. No, that's terrible. That's terrible. And that is why these cities don't have a lot of forward motion on some of these issues, because you don't have the involvement of police. A big step: record rate of Oregon mental health workers seek anti-suicide trainings. All right, that is both good and bad, right? That means there is a record demand for suicide training help. Right? That's not good. That's not good. Keep moving. Operation Inflation provides costumes for growing crowd outside Portland ice facility. Now we're getting to the actual behavior where people have mental issues. Because if you're going to protest a law enforcement entity that has been there throughout every administration, essentially, in modern times, and you're complaining about that law enforcement getting rid of criminal illegals from your city, you've got mental problems. That's a mental problem. That's not just politics. That's common sense. And you've got all these people, well, freedom of speech. Goes way beyond freedom of speech, what's happening at the Portland ice facility. And that's why Trump wants to send in the feds to protect the Portland ice facility. I think that happens really soon, because you got that court ruling that happened. So Operation Inflation, from frogs to raccoons to unicorns. Protesters near the Portland ice facility are finding new ways to use their voice, but with inflatable costumes. These are adults that are taking an inflatable costume and putting it on and monkeying around while law enforcement is trying to keep their community safe. Does that make any sense at all? Is that mentally challenged? Yeah, obviously. So why in Portland? Well, 1 out of 3 has some major mental health issues. Not that hard to figure out, right? They don't know how to react to people with humor and silliness, so why not try that? Said a woman in a frog costume on Thursday. What if you were actually helping the homeless? What if you were actually helping the businesses that have been just stolen from, broken into, graffitied up? What if you did that instead of getting in the way of law enforcement, making your community safer? What if you did that? Oh, well, I mean, we can't have that because that's logical. And clearly, we're dealing with people who have mental issues. 1 out of 3, right? Portland is protesting in inflatable costumes. And the number is growing by the day because all the crazy people are going, I want in on that. I want to go do that. That sounds like fun. And look at this. Look at this. Tell me that isn't mentally insane. Tell me that isn't just, hey, man, let's smoke some weed and get in my big frog costume and let's go whatever the protest is of the day. Let's go do that. These people are mentally challenged. They are mentally challenged. They need help. By the time I arrived, the waterfront park in downtown Portland, Oregon was already awash with people as far as the eye could see. The No Kings protest, which literally, the whole No Kings thing is a little mentally wonky. It is mentally wonky because it is, we used to say it's retarded, but we're not going to say that anymore. It's mentally challenged. The No Kings protest is mentally challenged. In June, it turned out over around 100 or 10,000 people across the city. This one saw several times that number just downtown. Well, because 1 in 3, Oregonians, and so much of the population lives in Portland and the big, West Coast cities. They've got mental issues, and they're thinking that putting on a costume and playing grab ass out in front of a law enforcement facility is somehow really accomplishing something. What is this accomplishing? What does this accomplish? The No Kings protest, what does that accomplish? What has happened since these protests have clearly been funded, and you've got, people being paid, and it's a bunch of old white people, and Portland is just loaded with white people with mental issues, clearly. So they think going and, frog costume. Oh man, Trump is really going to take us seriously now. Got a frog costume going on. Last month, President Donald Trump signed an executive order designating so-called Antifa a domestic terrorist group, a designation that does not exist. No, but it identifies them, and it's far greater than what, the previous administration did, which was just basically say, they're kind of a myth, aren't they? The executive order was followed by a national security presidential memorandum directing members of his cabinet to forcefully hunt down and prosecute the shadowy forces of Antifa. See, this is, where is this from? I don't even know. What writing? Most of the writings on this stuff is it's so far left that it's entertaining, right? Because you're watching. Yeah, you're literally watching the delusions of liberals. You're watching the delusions of Democrats who don't really know what to do when Trump actually gets stuff done, and they're left with, who do we complain to? I have severe Trump derangement syndrome. They have a syndrome. They have mental issues on top of a syndrome. They need help. These people need help. Maybe we need to send more than the National Guard. I'm not sure. So contrast this is my next podcast I'm going to be doing. Governor Abbott, this is a governor, orders state-led homeless encampment removal in Austin. Local mayor couldn't get it done. The governor steps in and says, hey, public safety, that's our number one thing. So they're not effing around with monkeying around with law enforcement, with ICE. In fact, local police and state police in many communities in Texas and Oklahoma and a bunch of other states have committed to working with law enforcement because that's what law enforcement does. So could you imagine Governor Kotex of Oregon ordering a state-led homeless encampment removal in Portland? Saying, hey, things are pretty bad there. We need to square this up. We need to clean this up because, hey, you mayor, Keith Wilson, you're not getting the job done. Could you imagine actually having a governor, and those of you in Texas, I know you can, or Florida, or any Democrat-run state? You guys are lucky. You guys have no idea. Because here on the West Coast, Best Coast, we're dealing with you got Governor Newsom, you had Jay Inslee, you've got Bob, let's tax the F out of Washingtonians, Ferguson. And then you got Tina Kotex down in Oregon, basically just running around with her girlfriend or wife or whatever that is, saying, everything's great here. Everything's great here. And you're left, if you physically go there, you're like, now there's some fundamental issues here that are pretty severe. And you got a bunch of people in costumes thinking that this is a good idea. This is a good idea. Huh. Yeah, weird. Maybe you guys need to get some help. I mean, it's not that hard to do, right? I mean, there's Medicaid covers a lot of this stuff, and Medi-Cal, and in California covers a lot. And you need some real help. If you think that a No Kings protest and wearing a costume is going to get you anywhere, because it's mental. It's truly mental. And the numbers don't lie, right? The numbers don't lie. 30%. I mean, that's not good. That's not good. Blaming that on anything other than, environment and a bunch of other stuff. Enough of ragging on Oregon. There are some great folks in Oregon. There's some great law enforcement in Oregon. Just, they're typically not in the big cities. And if they are, they're a minority and they're doing what they can. But it's an uphill battle. It's just like Seattle. It's an uphill battle for anybody that thinks public safety is a priority, because you've got a judicial system that just says, hey, man, do whatever. Yeah, you've got not only local leadership and mayors, mayor of Seattle, mayor of Portland, basically saying, we will not work with ICE. How come? Why not? What's your problem? You guys are all mental. You're literally mental. And then you've got governors doing the same thing. You got governors prioritizing public safety, like in Texas, whereas in Washington and in Oregon, oh, no, we're not doing that. No, we're not doing that. Inslee would not clean out the Ship Canal Bridge encampment, which was, I don't know, a block away from a local elementary school, would not clear that out until it became just a huge news story. Just had multiple things happening, one after another. I mean, it's just so bad, so bad. So on top of having mental issues, Oregon as just priorities not in the right place. They think that, this kind of stuff makes them look good. And the rest of us go, you've got issues, which clearly they do, more so than the average. Yeah. Frog costumes. What more do you need to say? Frogs. All right. Thanks for being here. I'll catch up with you in the next one. Make sure you're subscribed, hit that notification bell, and I'll catch up with you in the next episode. Bye for now.